comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the, no, here comes the, oh, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the, no, here comes the, oh, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. E-double-L, I said so, I keep big bills up in my...
It's August. The days are getting a little bit shorter, it's getting a bit cooler out, and I'm holding a football by both ends and gesturing with it to make you think I know what to do with a football in my hands. We don't know in 2020 what the school year is going to look like or what youth sports are going to look like, but we should be prepared as a service to treat sports injuries, especially in pediatric patients. We want to know, be able to identify concussive injuries, musculoskeletal injuries, talk about how we transport these kids and what our responsibilities are, and how we cooperate with trainers and parents and school officials, as well as our receiving hospitals. All right, so let's get to it. Hey kid, go along. Nothing but net. Well, as it turns out, 2020 has struck, and in the light of COVID-19, school sports have been canceled for this season. But we can still go over
2,000 years later.
Just kidding, sports are back on. That's probably good, right? Sure. So, sports injuries are going to vary, sport by sport. There are a few things that we can always look for, especially in some of our more high-impact sports, such as football, rugby, field hockey, even sports like wrestling and such like that, where kids are banging into each other. So we want to look for potential for concussion injuries, right? We see this a lot with our peewee players. We can look for symptoms such as disorientation, repetitive questioning, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and visual disturbances, among some others. Remember that a concussion is technically a low-level brain trauma. It's a traumatic brain injury, and these kids should always have evaluation performed if you have a high suspicion of this sort of injury. At the very least, they should not complete this game. One other thing we can talk about in regards to sports injuries is helmet removal. There's always a right way and a wrong way to do it, a right time and a wrong time to do it. We're going to talk about it, but if you wanted to follow along, take a look at Protocol 710. Taking a look at Protocol 710, helmet removal, we need to differentiate whether this is a high-speed or a low-speed helmet. A high-speed helmet, such as a motorcycle helmet, should always be removed, as it's pretty much impossible to maintain C-spine while somebody's head is bouncing around inside of a helmet. Remember, helmet removal is always a two-person process. Helmet removal for a sports helmet, however, gets a little bit trickier as far as the protocol is written. In some areas, you will see that helmets are left on as long as they're not obstructing the airway, and there are shoulder pads in place to align head and neck. But also notice in that protocol, this depends on an arrangement between the athletic trainers at the school or the league and the receiving hospitals, which is something that we don't formally have. So anytime we have a child or anybody in a sports helmet that needs to be emergently taken care of, needs to be transported, we're going to be removing that helmet. There's always a right way and a wrong way to do it, which we're going to demonstrate right now. A person in this form of helmet should have C-spine maintained by somebody off to the side of the patient by holding on to the base of the skull, the jaw, and alongside the zygoma, maintaining C-spine with the pressure of the side of the hands against the clavicle and shoulders, while the other rescuer pulls apart and removes the helmet from the top. At that point, the helmet can be set down, the other rescuer can maintain manual C-spine, and the cervical collar can be applied as usual. Face masks on helmets may need to be removed, especially if this is a football helmet. These helmets are expensive, thousands of dollars of expensive, right? We don't want to just get in there with our trauma shears unless we are absolutely worried about an immediate airway concern. Athletic trainers at these schools and in these leagues have tools to remove the face shield as needed effectively and safely for the patient, and should always be consulted before helmet removal if time permits. Covered a good amount of ground today regarding helmet removal and sports injuries. Remember to be aware for the signs and symptoms of a concussion and encourage those patients and their parents, if they're minors, to seek evaluation. Ideally at a trauma center, ideally at a pediatric trauma center. If it's a matter of a reluctant parent or guardian and they'll only go local, so be it. The hospital will manage that patient from that point on. Just make sure you're contacting them earlier for medical direction if need be, or to advise them that a pediatric trauma patient is on their way in. Thank you very much for tuning in to Fun Facts with Jack, and we'll see you next time.
Here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it now. a nigga like, yeah, here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, yeah, here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, yeah, here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, yeah, here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, he think he got her when he knew he's soft as butter. He ain't never been a fighter. You can go